Here we are with my buddy Michael Martinez from Jesus Michael Martinez. He likes J. Michael. It's cool with me. I've never called you Mike that I know of. So I'm happy to call you Mr. Martinez, whatever you prefer. And we've got Michael, one of the things, and it's probably the most important, but it's only the surface of what he does, is JMM Sales and Consulting Limited. So following inside the processes, the business processes of sales and consulting. Is that right, Michael? Is
that it would be correct.
Is that all you have to say about that? Is that I'm right? We can stop right now. I love that.
Well, I'll say a couple of things. First, I'll say my name. That's very interesting. My father's from Puerto Rico. That is where the Jesus comes from. Being born in Central New York in the 1970s, my mom chose to have me go by my middle name, which is Michael, because it was a different time. If you recall, we just came out of the civil rights movements. There was folks were coming back home from Vietnam. It was just a different period. And where I grew up in Central New York, she just thought it would be better if I went by Michael, just to avoid any problems at school going by Jesus or Jesus for that matter. So I always like to share that with folks. Interesting reason why I abbreviate the Jesus with a J.
So you are politically correct at the core.
Correct. That's a good way of saying it, Bobby.
That's very cool. So here's something, Michael, that I would like to just kind of start with, and then we'll jump into some other real important elements that are like following on your LinkedIn profile. But one thing, as you may remember, we sponsor a professional triathlete called Dr. Malachi Henry. He won the Chicago marathon last year, Indianapolis Marathon. He's won several marathons, and he comes in regularly in the top 10 in Ironman competitions. And so, wellness is something as a corporate culture that we believe at our core. And one of the cool things that I notice when you post on Facebook, particularly, is what you say is pay yourself first. Now, in financial planning, paying yourself first means, the first money you get, you put that into your bucket, and then you pay everybody else, pay all your bills. Tell me what you mean by that. Tell me what, paying yourself first in a wellness setting.
Well, first I want to say the gentleman that you just mentioned, that's very impressive. And I know how difficult it is to train for triathlons, biathlons, Ironmans. It takes a lot of work and dedication. For me, pay yourself first. And I do understand a lot of people think that applies to finances, but for me, it applies to my health, my mental well-being, my professional development. And I took it a step further because I wanted to share that message with all of the folks that I love in my life, whether it be family or friends, to really try to help encourage them by leading by example. So I take a lot of pride in that, and I do share that message throughout Facebook, a little bit on my LinkedIn profile, sometimes on Instagram. But it's really about, at the end of the day, if you don't have your health, which I totally believe ties directly into your mental health, I just think it's going to be a lot more challenging for you to have a fulfilled life and to have success and to have the ability to really develop relationships with those that you love. So it's very important to me.
You and I are both involved in an industry, the travel industry. And, the travel industry is also one of those things that is valuable for your mental health. Get out, go see some things and get your brain clear. And then the wellness thing. What's your workout like typically? You do it every morning? You do it?
Yep. So that's a good question. And regarding the hospitality thing, it's one of the things that drew me to hospitality, was that shared experience with loved ones, that idea of going ahead and really paying yourself with vacation 2, 3, 4, 6 weeks a year to get your mental health together. My training regimen, it varies throughout the year. I started out as an athlete, as a young child, playing sandlot baseball. Remember back in the old days, we called it sandlot. I don't know if they still do. I started doing that, and then I got into basketball. I played football. I was a high school athlete. I played basketball in college as well. I continued playing, city league sports up until my late 30s. In addition to my workout regimen, going to the Y or a Gold's Gym, I'm big into weight training as well. So currently, my program is I exercise 7 days a week, Bobby. 5 days is gym, that's lifting weights, weight training. The complete picture is I alternate between a body fit, we call it functional fitness class that I take. And I also got into bicycling about 3 years ago. As I've gotten older, I can't get on the basketball court like I used to. So I picked up the hobby of bicycling. So nothing hardcore. I probably do about 8 to 10 miles on the bike per day. And that also gives me an opportunity to put my headset on, listen to some good audible professional development listening, and kind of just free my mind for that hour and a half or so.
I'll tell you, with Malachi, he in fact, I talked to him yesterday, and he is also a chiropractor. So like you, he has a real job.
Yeah.
And so he has a resistance pool, and his bike cost around $20,000. Just the wheels alone are $5,000 a piece.
Yep.
So when we talked yesterday, I said, "So what are you doing?" He said, "I just finished a ride." He said it was kind of short today, so but I'll pick it back up tomorrow. And I said, "Well, how long was the ride?" He said, "Just 26 miles." I went, "Yeah, I know a ride 26 miles a day."
No, 8 to 10 is max for me, and I have my route. It doesn't change.
Yeah. Well, I will tell you, it's impressive anyway. No, no kidding. I mean, as a culture, I don't do enough of it at all. I mean, I grew up doing it. I don't do as much as I should. None of us do. Not even you. As you know, you can never get enough exercise. But wellness is also up here.
Connected, always has been. I've thought that since the 90s. And that was before that, then the messaging was there. And I always thought, I see these folks advertising and promoting physical training, but I hear nothing about mental health, which now is a massive topic in our society. But I've felt that way for years, 100%. It's all connected.
Well, let's jump into some of your money-making stuff. I'm going to skip around a little bit, because the one thing I'd like to look at is the licensed high school teacher and mentor. You're still teaching, right?
I am.
You're teaching high school.
Okay, so I'm very proud of that. I'm teaching ESL. So I'm a licensed teacher in the state of North Carolina. I've had my license active for the last 25 years. I was previously a full-time employed high school history teacher for Charlotte-Mecklenburg schools. I quit teaching, per se, a public full-time job, but I say mentor because I mentor my 5 nieces and my nephew. I've mentored friends' children. I do a lot of volunteer work. I was a guidance counselor for 7 years. Currently, I have my TESOL certificate, which is a certificate to teach English as a second language. So I'm contracted with a company out of Hong Kong called iTutor Group, and I teach English as a second language to professional adult Chinese, Taiwanese, and Japanese students. And I do that 5 hours a week. It's a couple of things. It's one, I get joy out of it, obviously, but it's also an opportunity for me to stay connected to education and give back to the community by doing this. So I really love it, and I still do it.
Yeah, that's great, man. That's got to be a kind of a welcome distraction in many ways from the normal grind, So again, moving around a little bit, SaaS, virtual sales expert. What caught my attention to that was the word SaaS. I mean, that usually means software as a service and virtual sales expert. Tell me what you mean by SaaS.
Yeah, so you absolutely nailed it. Software as a service, that's the correct acronym, but it really means a lot more. So these are technology-driven based companies, whether it's MarTech, which would be a marketing technology platform. Sometimes it's fintech, financial, education technology. I've represented several of these different clients in this space. I really love virtual sales, and I took it to a next level. There's an author and a founder of an online university called Sales Gravy, and his name is Jeb Blunt, and I promote him all the time on my LinkedIn profile. I've taken several of his certificate courses online to help become an expert. You get an expert certification when you complete his modules of courses. And when I say virtual sales expert, that's where we are now. Since the pandemic, it was even prior to the pandemic, but since the pandemic, it's even gone further to remote work and virtual selling. And virtual selling incorporates many different tools, primarily technology tools. Whether it's it could include your CRM such as Salesforce, HubSpot, Pipedrive, Monday. There's a variety of them. Salesforce and HubSpot being the two most common. You're going to use Zoom Info, Crunchbase, Rocketship. Those are platforms that help do your research, do your background information on your prospective clients. And then you're using comms, communication tools such as Slack. You're using dialers like RingCentral, Vonage, AirCall. There's a variety of different tools. And then there's your CRM. Then there's also your suite of technology platforms like Google Suite, Microsoft Teams. So now we're doing more and more selling, direct messaging. So I got into social selling in the last 4 years, and that's marketing your message and prospecting clients via LinkedIn. LinkedIn Sales Navigator is a big tool that I use. I also use TikTok and try to serve as an influencer. I use Instagram. I use Facebook groups. So when I say virtual sales expert, that's selling virtually and digitally.
Now, we already hit the health and wellness junkie. Customer success manager. We, as a company, my company, as you know, we're in the consulting business. We're a 25-year-old consulting practice, and as a part of that, we have this measurement tool called Customer Count, which I know you're familiar with. And so the whole idea of customer success is something we invest heavily in. So what do you mean by that?
Yeah, so I think it's very important, and what I do is I try to relate it to people's personal buying habits. What's the worst feeling in the world? I remember I've experienced this several times with companies that I've been loyal to, that I've purchased from for many years, whether it's a subscription to Amazon Prime, or maybe it's my Verizon cellular plan, or my Time Warner cable plan, whatever it may be. Every month you pay that bill loyally, and you continue on as a loyal customer. But for whatever reason, companies seem to forget you. They just seem to forget about you. And you'll see promotions being advertised for Verizon Wireless, 12 months at $9.99 per month for your cellular service. You start thinking, why am I not being offered to pay $9.99 a month when I've been with this company for 25 years? And that's just a simple example. So when I say customer success, I'm saying I help companies understand the importance, and not preaching to them, but help guide them to creating a message of being customer centric. Don't forget about your existing customers. You should always be doing what I call re-engagements. You should always be connecting with them, your existing customers, that is, to make sure they still have that loyal, or they're still being provided that customer focused, customer centric service. And then in addition to that, with your new clients, there's a stage. It's called implementation and onboarding. More and more clients, or more and more services have become a little bit more complicated and harder to use. They need a hand setting up a new app on their phone, or setting up a new app on their television to have a new streaming service. Customer success manager, their role is to help these customers get implemented and onboarded smoothly, so that the experience is great, and they can pass that message on to their friends and family and say, hey, I just bought from Mobius, and they had a customer success manager specifically assigned to me. That customer success manager helped me get started with my new account, implemented, onboarded. It was so easy and smooth, went over without a hitch. I highly recommend them.
So do you train on that? Do you build that process? What's your role?
So I have taken courses myself. I am a Scrum Master. If you go to scrum.org, you can learn about that. So I got my Scrum Master certification to help me as a consultant when working with clients. So I give them tips and ideas on how to do this, how to be customer centric, how to do implementation and onboarding. and I don't want to get too detailed or anything, it might come off a little boring, but development statements of work, developing workflows, how to manage a cadence and post cadence call, how do you do mock go lives. There's a real system behind implementation and onboarding and providing customer success.
And you bill that on a project by project basis, hourly? How does your billing structure work for that?
So the way JMM sales and consulting works, I work as your consultant and as your sales and marketing arm of your company. I'm an overlay on your company sales and marketing team. So what I do is I'll have a monthly billing, a monthly contractor fee, and then some sort of negotiated commission structure based on productivity as far as sales.
Excellent. So I will ask you then too, your focus is on B2C, right? Not B2B?
No, I am 100% B2B.
Oh, you are?
100% B2B. So I'll give you an example. I represent a company called Access Development out of Salt Lake City, Utah. I'm sure you're familiar with Access. They've been around forever and different verticals. And with them, I go out and I sell and I market. I do training. I help them with their onboarding and implementation when we sell into a new account.
Still there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, good. I'm sorry.
Would you like me to outline the life cycle of it?
Yeah.
Okay. So the first step is, I contracted with Access Development. That's the first and foremost thing, getting the contract with them to represent them. And then I go out and prospect clients. Once I prospect a client and I close a deal, then there's an implementation required to get them set up with Access Development. Access Development is a technology company. That's a SaaS company. So then the next thing I'm charged with is I go out to that client, whether we'll say a resort, for example, a vacation club. I'll go out with them. I'll train them on how to use the platform. Okay. And then I'll train their sales team on how to sell the platform and how it's going to be an added value add-on for their new members coming in. And then I act as their customer success manager during the continual life cycle. So as long as they're a customer of mine, anytime there's an issue, they contact me directly. And then I coordinate with Access in Salt Lake City and we resolve their issues. So that's basically the life cycle.
That's a good model. So you're doing the assessment and you're doing the implementation and then you're doing the management of the process that you designed.
Yeah, and then the account management in the end.
Yeah, that's consulting 101 that most consultants screw up. Because that, and one of the reasons is, and I've got a video that talks about this one, that there's a difference between a professional consulting firm like ours, like yours, and that person that's a consultant because they're in between opportunities. They may be subject matter experts, which is good. And so you want to bring them in, and there's nothing wrong with bringing that person in on a short-term basis. Yep. But you don't want to bring them in with the expectation that you're going to be able to hang on to them forever because their eyes are wide open. And really what they're doing too is they would not mind it if they're working for you as a consultant if you didn't offer them a job. So.
Yep, absolutely. I agree 100%. And I did want to mention one thing I did forget about is that my wife works with the company, with me in the company, and she's an attorney. So we also offer legal services to our clients. And that's very important in the international marketplace. So for example, if I'm representing a company, although I sell US, Canada, I also sell Mexico, international markets. Those Mexico-based clients, we offer legal services because there's a lot of bureaucracy when you're doing business internationally, as you probably know. So we also offer that service. Back to the other point, though, about consultants, I agree 100%. When I sit down with a prospective client, I'm interviewing them as much as they're interviewing me.
Yeah.
So one of the things I always say to my prospective clients is, I want us both to have skin in the game. That's first and foremost, and that's why I can justify a consulting fee. Number two, I'm not just going to give you a referral and then walk off and leave the account hanging and leave it up to you to close the deal and take care of the account. There's more to managing a client and just bringing on a new account. There is a life cycle, and that's what a true consultant does. A true consultant manages the life cycle. It's not just throwing a referral and walking off.
I'll tell you, Michael, interestingly enough, that one of the things that I've learned in well, this business is 25 years old, but I've been a consultant. I don't remember the last time I had taxes taken out of my paycheck. But one of the things I learned really early on is something I'm sure you're gonna go, holy cow, I wish I'd have thought of that. But when I'm talking to a prospect before we sign any agreement, I point out to them that I will find politics in your organization. And when I spot politics, I'm going to give you one opportunity to fix it. If you don't fix it, there's going to be a 10% upcharge. And I make that real clear because you know, and I know, typically when I go into a place, the first person that comes in the door is threatened. The second person that comes in the door is curious. And the third person that comes in the door is going, how can I help? And so it's that first person that walks in the door that I'm usually I keep an eye on because they're like a rolling puck in a hockey game, you know?
Yeah, I never thought about it, and it makes good sense. I always say people buy off of emotion or make a decision off of emotion, initially, and then after comes the logic. And that's the difficult part for a lot of sales folks. They get caught up in the emotion portion of it, and they lose. I think a lot of times they can lose deals because of that. You got to understand the initial reaction is purely emotion. Once you get through that wavy part and get to the logic, the opportunity increases the probability of you closing a new deal. And then also developing a relationship long term. My clients, like Access, I've been representing for 5 years. You speak to a lot of consultants out there. I don't like to use the word broker because it's a completely different thing. I think sometimes that gets confused. But there's a lot of consultants out there that don't have those long-term relationships with clients. They're 2 years, 3 years, and then they're caught, and then they're on to the next one. I try to make mine long-term. I want 5, 7, 10, 15 years if possible.
Yeah. So I'll just point out one more little anecdote about my selling consulting services. I know when I walk in the door, and I think you probably will agree with this too, I'm walking in the door because somebody has a problem and they don't know how to fix it, but they don't want to take the heat.
Yep.
So one of the questions I ask, and it's how I help design my price model with them, is where am I taking the bullet? Am I taking it in the shoulder? Am I taking it in the knee? Or am I taking it between the eyes? Because those are 3 different price points. So, hey, I can talk about this with you all day long, but I want to make sure that we get to the charity part of this thing, because as you may know, and anybody that's watched any one of my BobCasts know that I contribute $50 to your charity of choice as a way of thanking you for your time. That way I don't have to send you an invoice. And I was finally successful at contributing $50 to the UN AIDS, and I will send you the verification that I did do that. So
thank you for that, Bob. That's greatly appreciated. UN AIDS does an amazing job. It's a global organization started in 1996. There's still 1.3 million people, for example, were infected with AIDS last year. There's 39 million people living with AIDS currently. And 630,000 people died just this year alone from AIDS-related illnesses. So I really appreciate you doing that. This is dear to my heart, so I want to say thank you.
Well, you're welcome. Thank you. I mean, because obviously, it's your charity of choice. So it's important that we all, in fact, on our website, we have a designation of sharing for caring. Sharing is caring, where we list the charities of choice for our clients, whatever they want. And this one of the things that, that strikes me about AIDS in particular, this organization, because it is global, is that AIDS has become systemic. It used to be one of those things that this guy has it or this lady has it, and it wasn't, it was more the exception. But now in parts of the world, it's systemic. It's an epidemic, and it's in some parts of the world, it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when.
Yep.
So, I know $50 is going to go a long way for something like this, particularly in those parts of the world that have organizations like Doctors Without Borders and that are supported
Absolutely.
by this group.
Yep. And you and I are both old enough to remember, when AIDS first came into our society, we began hearing the news about it and the stigma that was around it and the discrimination that was around it, and just the whole, it was a time of turmoil. I remember it, clearly.
Well, I remember very clearly when unfortunately, Magic Johnson contracted it,
Yep.
and he brought it out to the public, and that was a big deal because that created significant awareness that this doesn't have to kill me. I have it. I'm going to have to live with it, and so, and then of course here in Indiana we had Ryan White, who was one of the first youngsters, and he was actually kicked out of high school in Kokomo, Indiana, because they thought it could be contracted by him shaking hands or sipping a glass of water. And when he passed away, there were people like Elton John and Michael Jackson and Michael Jordan that came to Kokomo, Indiana to his funeral to create the awareness that this doesn't have to kill you. Had you treated this young man properly, he probably would be alive today.
100% agree.
So, well, listen, amigo, this has been a hoot. I could spend another hour, but in the interest of ensuring that people are going to hear what you have to say, we should probably move on.
I do want to say thank you for having me on today.
Oh, I had a good time, man. Thank you very much. I really, really appreciate your time.